Hello, IBGO students. It is Mr. Murrow, if you didn't know that already. Just saying hello. Wanted to introduce this week's assignment. So it is going to be officially on the docket starting tomorrow, Tuesday, the 21st. It will be due the following Tuesday on April the 28th. Should be a good one. So here's what we're going to do. My wife and I were walking, getting our steps today. And she talked about vacations and leisure and things like that. And I said, oh, that's a thing that we talk about in IBGO. And she said, yeah, well, I remember my grandpa saying that when he was working at Falk Corporation, he was a maintenance mechanic at Falk. Falk is in the Menominee River Valley in Milwaukee, which is just east of today's Miller Park. But when he worked there, he would take his vacation time in order to have time to go home and paint his garage. So that is what he did for his leisure time or his vacation time for work. Pretty crazy. It's changed a lot. He was from back in the day, they talked about a lunch pail. And this is actually his lunch pail that he used in the manufacturing facility. Things have changed quite a bit. Now, back then, lunch boxes, this is mine, my Peanuts lunchbox from the early 70s. Good metal, sturdy lunchbox. It's still going. A little bit of rust on it, but not bad. And then things changed. Kind of cheap plastic, but you know what? It's still holding up good. This was Paulie's from back in the day. I'm sure he's happy I am showing you the Yoda lunchbox. So things have changed. I want you, hopefully you can get a hold of a grandparent. If not a grandparent, then a parent. And I want you to talk about some of the themes and topics that we've gone over in geography this year and ask them what things were like when they were a kid. So either in grade school or in high school, I'd rather have them kind of stay in their childhood and just kind of get a comparison as to how things were then versus how they are now. I think things have changed quite a bit. So when we talk about leisure time, here's a picture that I have. I collect a lot of History of Milwaukee pictures, and this one is from Milwaukee's lakefront. That is Lake Michigan, and you can see here, let's see, okay, the lake here, this is now all filled in. That's all landfill. That is Veterans Park, today's Veterans Park. Here you see that tower. Well, that was a railroad station. It's unfortunate they tore it down. They didn't want to restore it. It was going to cost too much. So they tore it down. That is now where the Brinn Museum is, and many of you may have gone there as a kid. These are Cudahy Towers. Those are condos, but now there's some huge condos and commercial buildings that exist there. And you can see this. This is so cute, I think. You see this trail, this sidewalk area. People were dressed in what they used to call their Sunday best. This is now all trees, and Juneau Park is up here in Milwaukee, but back then they had mowed down all the trees, cut them all down, and then put in these walking areas, because that's what people do. They'd go and walk. And you can see the smoke billowing there. That's actually a railroad. So it's coming from the station. And the railroad, now it's Lincoln Memorial Drive that cruises kind of past Bradford Beach and takes up the kind of the North Shore. But back then, that was a railroad, which is pretty crazy, so it's changed a lot. Another thing, leisure from back in the day. This is really old, too. This is, I think, from around 1915, something like that. At any rate, I think you'll find this interesting. I'm trying to get the glare off of there. But this was called Borchardt Field. So before they had Miller Park, there was County Stadium. Before they had County Stadium, there was a place called Borchardt Field, and that's where the minor league, not major league, but minor league Milwaukee Brewers played, which is pretty interesting. You can see how people are lined up here to get in. This is a ticket booth, and I don't know if you can see it on there. It's pretty tough, but it was actually 25 cents to get into a game, which is interesting. I think this is an ad for cigarettes, if I'm reading that correctly. This was funeral carriages. I'm not sure what that is. And then this here is an ad for Blatz. That was a beer, very famous beer. The Blatz, Schlitz, Pabst. Miller, some big beer companies here in Milwaukee back then. The reason you don't see where Borchardt Field is anymore, remember our other video that showed the interstate? Well, that is part of what is now Interstate 43. So the interstate shoots right through Milwaukee, coming north out of downtown. That Borchardt Field was at around between 9th and 11th and Burleigh, if you guys are familiar with Milwaukee. So just on a near north side of town, but that's now all freeway. That neighborhood is completely kind of cut in half. All right, so when you approach this person, your grandparent or parent, and if you don't have access to anybody, you could certainly look this stuff up on the internet. But I'm going to ask you who you talk to, about what years approximately that they're referring to, and we're going to go over several topics over geography. So leisure. What was happening? What did people do with their leisure time, or what did they do with their leisure time back then? Sports. What sports were popular? To what degree were sports big back then? Tourism. What did people do for tourism? Remember, tourism means that you've stayed somewhere at least one night. You're considered a tourist. Health. What was healthcare like? What was the health system? Food. What were popular foods? Was it easy to access food? How much did food cost? Various natural resources. Oil now, if you've heard, oil is actually worth negative. So there are barges on the coasts waiting to get rid of their oil, these big ships, and they actually have to pay, I'm hearing, to have somebody take their oil. That's how cheap oil is right now. It's a big supply versus demand right now. Environmental usage, anything they can comment on in terms of the environment, which has changed even in my lifetime. And then where people live and immigration, we talked about that at the beginning of the year. So maybe where were immigrants coming from? Where did people congregate, or where did they live? What were popular areas to live, and how have those changed? So all those things. I will list all this on our webpage, and then I'll have you select questions to ask, and you just pop down the answers, and then we'll be able to share that with the class a little bit. I think it'll be pretty meaningful. I didn't plan it this way. I'm in our dining room, but behind me, these are some places that we've toured. So that's San Francisco when Kate was a baby. It's Muir Woods. It's Washington, D.C. up there. Here is Orlando and Disney World, and then this is Boston. I think that's all Boston, actually, yeah. So it's kind of cool. Anyhow, so I think this will be cool. It's give you a good opportunity to bond with somebody in your family, somebody of an older generation. And I think there's a lot to learn because when we talked about the lunch pail, I haven't ever had to do this. Pretty amazing how life has changed. But a lot of things stay the same as well, and I think you'll find that too. A lot of our values, characters that we hold dear to us. So enjoy. I hope it goes well, and looking forward to it, guys. Talk to you soon. I miss ya. See ya.